works too. Episode number 12.
We're sorry for the delay.
It's
Someone was
coming out.
studying.
I studied for a midterm that I got a D+ on, so I don't think the studying did much help. But that's besides the point. College basketball.
Normally we do this on Sundays. And then someone went to a basketball game and then
Had to study for midterms that he
didn't
managed to
let their
fail.
co-host know about.
I said I was going to a game with Rezek and Landon at
No,
some
I knew about
point.
that part. And then when I was like, hey, you want to come film? You're like, oh, yeah, I can't.
I'm in Lincoln.
No, it was before, after that.
Yeah, it was after I
You
got
were
back.
here.
But I had to study for a midterm still. The studying didn't do much help. I probably could have filmed the podcast last night with how much the studying did for me when it came to passing a dang midterm. But that's whatever. We live and we learn. Got to become an academic weapon for the rest of the year in that class to make up for it. College basketball.
New AP
rankings came
poll.
out today.
It literally came out a few minutes before we started. What's your biggest change other than UConn dropping? Ha.
I think the biggest one for me is Washington State getting as big of a nod as they did. I mean, they're not a bad team, but just because they beat Arizona doesn't mean they jump into the top 20 teams in the nation. I mean, they're 21-7. They're not a bad team, but it's I think that's a large jump for a team that knocked off number 6. I think the other one is Gonzaga getting moved in. Florida and South Florida sitting there at 24 and 25. I don't think I expected South Florida to be ranked at all this year. There wasn't really a ton of crazy movers other than obviously UConn dropping below Houston and Purdue. But now you've kind of got a three-way battle for who's the best team in the nation.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone thought it was UConn. Now you've got to actually ask the question, is Houston the best team? I mean, based on the vote getters, it looks like the vote getters are still going Houston, then Purdue, then UConn for votes. As Houston got 53 of the first place votes this week. Purdue got 4 and UConn got 5. But Purdue obviously got more second place votes than UConn because UConn is below Purdue in the overall rankings. Mm-hmm. So I think the other one is Tennessee. Did anyone see Tennessee being a top 4 team in the nation at the beginning of the season?
No.
I don't think so. I know I didn't.
I didn't.
I thought that 4 slot would be occupied
Kansas.
by like a Kansas, a North Carolina, a Marquette, an Arizona. One of the guys that's sitting below this Tennessee team, but there's no discredit to Tennessee. That is a good Tennessee team.
Mm-hmm.
But you also look at the records of the teams that are ranked 4 to 11. Everyone is 21-6. They are all equal record-wise. So that's probably a tighter battle than it may seem. If everyone loses and one of those teams wins, then one of those teams is going to jump to 4 and everyone else is going to drop. So
Yeah, I mean, Marquette led by Shaka, smart, really technically sound team. So, I mean, there's a reason they've been one of the top 4 or top 5 this whole year.
Despite that Washington State loss, Arizona's been consistent considering that they were not as good as they were. They weren't a good team last year, and Caleb Love has turned that program around when it comes to just having a guy that can score down the stretch. North Carolina is starting to get more consistent with RJ Davis and Armando Bacot. Don't know if I think we have on the thing about the court storming.
Yeah, we'll get to
I was
that.
I was just looking at Duke's name, and I was thinking that's probably one of the things we're going to end up talking about.
Yeah. Looking bracketology. Your last 4 buys of this week are Northwestern, Nebraska, Virginia, Nevada. Last 4 in Seton Hall, Providence, Gonzaga, A&M. First 4 out, Wake Forest, Ole Miss, Utah, Butler. Kind of a little surprising there. Figure that they'd be somewhat in by now.
I think Providence is probably taking their spot.
That would be my guess. Next 4 out, Villanova, Drake, Cincinnati, Colorado.
I was saying it a couple weeks ago. If Providence makes a run at the end of February, start of March, they could be a dangerous team coming into tournament. Because if they get hot, they're going to be hot because they have to get hot to make the tournament. And they're going to already be hot, where some of these teams like Houston could lose a game or two coming down the stretch where they just don't play their guys, and then they may not be hot going into the tournament. Yeah. Now, Houston is not going to do that. Houston's going to probably win out. might get to go see a Houston game over spring break as they play in Norman, and I'll be home the day before that, so I might be going to watch that. We'll see. I will be storming the court if OU beats Houston in Norman.
That's banned. You can't do that. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it, and it's not banned. And I have buddies that go to OU that I know I could storm the court with the student section. So,
something I'm just looking at the projected bracket right now is me and Grady might be making our bet a little bit more scary.
Because y'all are going to be in the same section.
Right now is Creighton and Charleston playing against the winner of what would be BYU versus Seton Hall or Gonzaga. Nebraska has to take on Florida and the winner of Kansas Eastern Washington.
I think Nebraska, if they're hot, can win all those. Can win against all those opponents. That's saying something about Kansas, too. Kansas has not looked good down the stretch at all.
So,
at all.
What does that mean for my bet?
I don't know.
Because that wouldn't be the national title.
Y'all would be playing in the tournament, and I think that's kind of what you wanted. So
yeah, that is what we wanted, but
probably mean that you guys would probably end up talking about it come March. But if that's where the bet is going to end,
it's a good thing we are going over to our training room after this. Yeah. And near our coach's office. That might be a question to ask.
It might be a question to ask. But
sorry, I just noticed that and I was like, hold up.
So Filipowski and the court storming, I know we were talking about it, kind of hinting at it. Filipowski and Duke need to just man up. Because if you watch the overhead, Filipowski says that he was targeted and that students ran at him. He tried to trip and shove multiple students, and that's when he got hurt. I'm sorry you tried to trip and shove guys that just beat you in a basketball game. That's on you for getting hurt. Now, you don't want to see it. I'm not saying I wanted to see him get hurt in that situation. But if you're going to attempt to trip somebody and then shove them and they hit your knee while you're trying to trip them because they are normal height and not 7 feet tall, you can't blame that on them. You're the idiot who tried to get in their way and cause somebody to trip and fall.
Yeah.
That'd be like if I went up and punched Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson and he punched back. I'm like, well, why did he punch me? Why else would he not have punched me? Because I punched him first.
Yeah. My thing with, another thing to go along with that was you watched in Creighton versus UConn, right? Creighton won, stormed the court. Darren Hurley came out and said, well, they were saying things at me. They're cussing me out and all that.
Here's a solution to all that. Don't lose games like that. If you're going to, don't lose to unranked Wake Forest.
Yeah.
And don't lose if you're UConn. Creighton's a good team, but they're still not as good as UConn.
Yeah.
When you look at statistically, don't lose those games, then you don't have to worry about court storms.
Yeah, and it's Creighton UConn has started to become a big rivalry game. As someone who follows Creighton religiously, I hate UConn. I hate Dan Hurley. But, Wake Forest Duke isn't that big of a rivalry, but it's still Duke. They're still a blue blood of college basketball.
And Wake Forest is just now getting into that era of they're becoming a competent basketball team.
You can't, and I saw people bringing up the Caitlin Clark situation when that happened. These things happen. Does it suck that he got hurt because of it? Yes. But I don't think we should ban these court stormings and field stormings because people are getting hurt by it.
Here's the way to solve it. Tell your players, if you're in the possibility of losing a game, that's a big one where there's a possibility of court storming, tell them to be ready for a possible court storming. Mm-hmm. Because then situations like what happened with Filipowski and what happened with Caitlin Clark wouldn't happen because the players would be aware.
Yeah.
You'd think by now they'd be aware in general.
Well, and too, you see security, we'll line where they shake hands.
Uh-huh.
Tell your guys as soon as the buzzer sounds,
as soon as the buzzer sounds, get in the line where there's going to be protection. Otherwise, you're just subjecting yourself to the possibility of getting hit.
And now if it's them walking to the tunnel because it's across the court, then that's understandable, right? You're trying to get
you've got security guys that can walk teams to courts if that's what we're really worried about.
Yeah.
But, even then, most of those college students are typically so drunk that they're just there to have a good time. They're not trying to injure anybody. They're not trying to get in anybody's way. They're not going to seek out a player to just start wailing on.
Yeah.
They're just going to run to the court with their buddies because everyone else is running to the court. Like, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
I know that if what happened in Bedlam 2 days ago had happened in Norman, the court would have been stormed.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Because that's Bedlam. Like, you win on a buzzer beater step back 3 in OT, you're storming the court. But since it was in Stillwater, we didn't, because there was not that many OU fans there.
Yeah.
But
I think, like, even football, too, right? You hit a walk-off shot to beat, a team that's higher ranked than you are. Players are kind of trained
Tennessee, Bama, what happened with there?
Yeah. Like, players are kind of trained of, all right, we're not going to be able to shake hands. We're just going to go to the locker room.
Or like what happened with LSU, where they had a fan run onto the field and steal one of their pylons when they beat Bama. Like, things like that are going to you just got to learn that you just got to keep your head on a swivel. If you keep your head on a swivel, then things like that don't happen.
Yeah.
And things like what happened with Caitlin Clark, I think, are pure accidents. The thing with Filipowski, I think, is more of that's kind of on you, dude. Don't try to trip a fan and shove a fan. Because if you watch, he clearly fully extends his arms and sticks his knee right in front of somebody while they're running. If I'm Filipowski, I'm just going to stand there and let all of the fans run by me and then move.
Yeah.
Like, there's no risk. Well, there's no reason to run the risk in putting yourself in that situation. It doesn't make sense to me why you would do that.
Yeah. In other news, freaking UConn lost. Suck it. I hate you guys.
And then you guys
Creighton
lost to St. John's.
I mean, okay, here's my thing with it, right? Because I went to UConn. That was awesome. That's the loudest I've ever seen CHI. It's the most packed I've ever seen it. And then we lost to St. John's. And it's one of those of, okay, we've done what almost every team has beaten a top-tier team has done. You go on the road and lose. You're a little drunk on the win. It sucks. But we were talking with the new AP
Can't do that in March, though.
Yeah.
In March, you got to just understand that when you beat a better team, you got to know that you got to just go play the next one. You can't worry about being too overhyped. That's what my coach always did with us. Because my freshman year, when we won state in high school, we knocked off a team in the semis that had beat us 7 straight times. As a team, when we were playing them, we were 0-7 against this team. We had never beat them. And then we beat them by 4 touchdowns. And our coach was like, we still have a state championship to go win. We aren't celebrating this. When we come back on Monday, there's not going to be any film watched about this game. Mm-hmm. He was like, we are not watching film on this game. You guys can watch it yourselves on Saturdays. We're going to come up. We're going to do a lift on Saturday. And Saturday is going to be game planning for Plainview and the state championship. Because there's no, sure, we beat them for the first time. Now we're tying the record with them. We're 7-7 now because the last 7 times we've played them, we've beat them. But, they had an OU commit receiver. Multiple eventual OU football players. So I think it's all a matter of as a coach, you have to make sure that your guys don't overhype wins like that, because then things will happen like what happened with Creighton, where you lose the next game when it's a gimme. Creighton versus St. John's is a gimme for Creighton. There's no reason you should lose that game in 20 years.
Yeah.
But I think because the fact that you were coming off of a big win against UConn, it's not that's the reason OU lost a lot of games this year, because we would beat teams like Texas, and Oklahoma State, and we would come off those games oh, we're better than we think, and then we'd go and get blown out by Kansas or blown out by Houston. It's oh, bring us right back down to earth, why don't you?
Yeah. And I was saying to you earlier I heard someone say if Creighton would have lost to St. John's, they probably would have been higher up in the rankings this week.
They probably would have cracked the top 10. I could see them because then they'd be 21-7, so they'd be in that 21-6 range. They probably would have jumped Duke and Auburn.
Mm-hmm. And I
don't know if they would have jumped North Carolina, just because Carolina's still been consistent. But
yeah.
North Carolina, Iowa State, Kansas, Arizona, Marquette, Tennessee, all those have been consistent. But Duke and Auburn have been the ones that are fading right now. I could have seen y'all jumping into at least the 10 spot, maybe more, depending on how the voters looked at it.
Yeah, that would be my guess. Was at least 10.
At least 10, maybe more, depending on how the voters looked. But that's where I would have said.
Yeah, and then obviously with the loss, they said we would be about the same, which we relatively are.
Only moved up 3 spots.
Yeah.
You only really jumped Baylor, who lost this week, Bama, who lost this week, Bama lost this week, I think, and Illinois, who also had rough weeks. Those 3 that you jumped had rough weeks, so it makes sense why you would jump them, despite the fact that you lost to St. John's.
Yeah. Baseball news. college baseball's underway. One dude from Grand Canyon, I didn't put it on here. Grand Canyon University, did you see the pimp job of a home run that he
I
hit?
didn't see the one that Grand Canyon did, but I will tell you what, I saw the one that OU did.
Yeah, a dude from Grand Canyon hit a grand slam for his first home run of the year. Halfway down the line, bat flip. Got ejected as soon as he crossed the plate.
Dude from OU hit one, and he just held the bat at his side and stood in the batter's box. He didn't move in the batter's box until it cleared the fence, which was a solid 4 seconds before it cleared the fence. I was like, this dude put a pimp job on that one.
Biggest one to go down was Wake Forest, the number 1, to UNC Greensboro.
Yeah.
That's about it. Baseball's kind of in the awkward point,
Yeah, baseball did just now get started, so
Yeah.
there's not going to be as many upsets right now
It's
as there were.
It's in the point where it's just, your tournament time, getting ready for your regular season to kind of kick off.
Yeah.
Softball.
Oklahoma
Do your
still
thing.
unanimously the number 1 team in the nation. No one else is getting votes as the number 1 team in the nation. I mean, we 63 in a row. It's not much more you can say other than 63 in a row. There's not that many teams still undefeated. I know OU, Tennessee. I think they said there were 6 of us left, including Alabama's in there. There's not that many undefeated teams left, but I mean, there still has not been a challenge because Washington was supposed to be that, and we still won there. It took us to extras, but we beat Washington, and that's been the closest team that's played us. I think every other game has been 9 or so runs. Because I was looking at the record earlier. Let me see. Because I know we were dominant this weekend. This weekend. At, where were we playing? Which one? I don't want to say it because I think it's the Mary Nutter. That's what it was. That's why I didn't want to say it at first. We beat Mississippi State 9-3. We beat Wisconsin 10-2 in 5 innings. Run ruled Wisconsin. 7-0 versus San Diego State. Beat Seattle 8-0 in 6. Beat Loyola Marymount 9-0 in 5. I mean, when you go win one weekend and only play 2 full games, that's saying something. To run rule somebody in two run rules in 5 innings and 1 run rule in 6. It's hard to do that consistently. And I think now we've won 3 plus what we did this week, which was 3. We've run ruled 6 opponents in 14 games. And that's not counting Utah Valley, I think. So I think we technically have run ruled half of the teams we've played this year, which is absurd when you think about it.
That's pretty good.
Whenever you say you can run rule somebody in 5 consistently, that's crazy. I'm going to try to go see the Louisiana and Liberty games at the opening weekend at Love's Field in Norman. Considering I'm going to try to go to the Houston OU game that night, I'll just spend a day in Norman. Get there at 11 and won't leave till midnight. It's whatever, though. Have to text my dad and see if he wants to go to those, but we'll see. But other than that, I mean, there hasn't really been, from what I've seen and from following, there hasn't been any crazy changes. I mean, Nebraska dropped out of the top 25, and so did Northwestern. But Nebraska, I think everyone kind of saw coming because the fact that Nebraska did lose Jordy Ball. So I think now that they're kind of getting into the rhythm of what Nebraska softball is going to be like without Jordy Ball. So we'll see.
There's also a really quiet week in college.
Except for
athletics.
basketball. Basketball is the big one. I know Nebraska beat the crap out of Minnesota yesterday.
That's wild, man. Trying to find a scenario where I really care.
I was at that game. I think the greatest dunk contest in 2024 happened yesterday when they brought the Nebraska football players out and had them do a dunk contest at halftime, which is sad that it was better than the NBA dunk contest. And people were saying that, and a lot of people thought that it was a joke. As someone who was there in person, it was better. It was way better than what I watched on national television on All-Star Weekend. Because these guys actually did things. Like, when I saw Matt Rule get pulled out of the crowd by a DB with Dylan Raiola and Malachi Nelson standing under the basket, I was like, this is about to be a good time. But I think it was also fun seeing Malachi's perspective, where he was live streaming the entire thing from court side. So I was trying to look earlier if OU softball plays Nebraska at any time this year.
Nope.
I don't think so.
They do not. I just looked.
I'm just ready for what's it called when they go into regionals and super regionals and College World Series, because I will be at home during College World Series, and that is 2 hours away from my house in Hall of Fame Stadium.
Are we done with school when that happens?
We're done with school
May, like the first week of May. When was the World Series?
May 30th.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, I'll
we'll be out for like a month.
I could go to the Big 12 championship in OKC because we'll be out. But I will be in Dallas the week of the Big 12 or not Dallas. I'll be in San Antonio the week of the Big 12 championship at a Luke Combs concert. So I won't be able to go to the Big 12. Maybe able to go to the first couple days, but the Friday, Saturday I won't be able to go to. I could go to Wednesday, Thursday, but those are going to be the games where OU run rules half the Big 12, so it doesn't really matter.
That's such a huge flex the way you say that. I don't know how to feel about that one.
The only team in the Big 12 who has competed with us in the last few years is Texas, and they're not even that good this year, which is saying something because they're the number 3 ranked team in the nation. But they're not as good as OU. We stole OSU's best pitcher, so we stole Kelly Maxwell.
True.
Who is now the best pitcher in the Big 12 for OU. She just replaced Jordy Ball when Jordy Ball left. So if Jordy Ball had stayed, there's no way anybody is beating this team.
I don't think anybody can.
There's not going to be anyone that is going to beat this team, but there would be no doubt about it if we had Jordy Ball still, too. But I don't know. We play OSU to end the season May 5th. That's a Sunday. That's the Sunday we go back, I think, right? Because the spring game
is April 26th.
Yeah, so that May 4th is when we are out for the year, I believe.
It is May 3rd is our last day.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah.
I will be out of here at ASAP on May 5th. Because only final I'll probably have will be Lit with Haley, who I just failed his midterm. But I'll probably take that on a Monday.
Yeah. I think.
And we won't have any workouts because we'll be done.
I mean, we'll have probably on our own stuff.
I can do those from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
In the comfort of my own house.
That's what I'm saying.
I will be leaving Tuesday. I'm going to just tell Jesse, hey, I'm checking out of my room. You can come get it.
You know what I find funny? The other day we ate with a recruit. Nice guy. Doesn't probably watch the show.
He probably doesn't know it exists.
Probably doesn't even know who we are anymore.
Yeah.
But something we were, I was telling him, because he asked, about off-season workouts and all that and what we do. And I was telling him about how we, if you live close by, you can come and do field work with us. And this man over here goes, well, Will, that's for people who are close. And I'm like, dude, you can stay at my house.
No, here's the thing. I said, I looked at you and said, hey, that you're talking to an Oklahoman and a Texan. You think we're coming to Nebraska in the summer? No. We have better lives.
You phrased it a lot more of a, hey, idiot.
I said it like this. I said, you're talking to a Texan and an Oklahoman here. That's what I said word for word.
His mom was so nice, though, and was like, oh, that's so nice of you to do. And I'm like,
here's the thing. I have a better life in the state of Oklahoma than I have here. And that's saying something, because in the state of Oklahoma, I have broken many a bones, torn many a ligaments, had my parents get divorced, and yet I still had a better life in the state of Oklahoma than I've had in my 9 months here.
All right,
that's beside the point.
We should send it out.
Just send it out. That's. If you got any ideas for things for us to talk about in college sports?
That's my job.
Okay.
Can I do my job?
Do your job.
Thanks, man. This is why we're roommates. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you did enjoy it, the delayedness of it, because we're trying to be students first, leave a like and subscribe. I heard that sigh. Holy moly. I heard that sigh over there. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe. If you have any requests for what we should talk about, let us know in the comments down below. We will probably look into it. Something we should look into, by the way, for professional is lacrosse.
PLL.
Yeah. I don't know, I was seeing them on my feed the other day, and I was like, that would be kind of fun.
We should also talk about ice football.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That'll be a new topic.
Oh, that's going to be talked about Wednesday.
Indoor ice football is great. Whenever indoor league starts up, too, we got to start talking about that, considering Art's playing for the Outlaws.
We have to get Art on the podcast.
If we can get Art on the podcast, that'd be fire. But he's going to be moving to
We got to figure out when he moves.
Is Billings, Montana or Wyoming?
Montana.
That's what I thought. So he'll be moving to Montana pretty soon.
Yeah, we got to figure it. We got to ask him questions about that.
Yeah.
He probably
maybe next fall, because he'll be here more. It'll be
Yeah.
easier next fall to get him. Have him come in and sit down and talk about what it's like playing professionally indoor.
Yeah. With that being said, thank you, and we hope to see you on Wednesday when we talk professionals. Thanks. Have a great day.